How much should you be charging for mixing in 2024? That is what we're going to discuss today. Hello and welcome. My name is Owen-Flood. I teach DIY audio things here on YouTube. So if you like that sort of thing, please do subscribe. And yeah, today we're going to talk about how much you should be charging to mix a song in 2024. There is no one size fits all answer, and we're going to break it down into 3 different price tiers, as well as cover a couple additional topics that could come up in the pricing conversation. So whether you are an audio engineer offering your services of mixing to bands and musicians, or you are a band or musician that is wondering, hey, how much should I be expecting to pay for this sort of thing, this video is going to be very helpful for you. And of course, I've got one bonus tip at the end, so do stick around. It's going to help you kind of convey your professionalism when you are pitching your services. Honestly, I just got over a terrible cold. I think it was probably COVID. It took me like a week. I've just been in bed for a week. It's been awful. So if I'm a little low energy on this video, I do apologize, but I'm back onto coffee now. I'm feeling marginally better, at least well enough to film something. So thanks for sticking with me on this. Before we get into the prices of mixing, I want to talk about what goes into mixing. So this is important for a couple of reasons, because it's not just providing a file that is mixing. There's a lot more that goes into it. And it's not just the fun creative part of actually, adding effects and messing with things that we all love to do. There's more than that. So we need to consider those things when we're deciding what we're charging to make sure that our price actually reflects all of these crazy amounts of things that we do and really represent the service that we provide as a whole. The first thing to consider, and probably the most time consuming, is the prep that goes into a mix. You have to do all of this kind of maintenance and administrative work before you can actually get to the creative fun part. So take this for example, we've got just a huge whack of stems. There's wet stems and then there's dry stems. So I've got like 2 versions to audition for all of them. This artist, bless them, they did some good labeling here at least they specified what is wet and dry. It's not always that good, unfortunately, but they were on top of it, which is great. I like to run them through a software that checks if they're actually mono or stereo files, because sometimes they get exported wrong on that. You got to actually review all the files, make sure that they're not clipped or exported wrong, or missing chunks, that make sure you're not missing tracks. There's so much prep that goes into just getting ready to mix. I use a mixing template, so I got to load it into that, and then also just that takes time. You got to gain stage it. It all takes time before you even get to mixing. So prep is a few hours, probably. It could be less, could be more, depending on what you get sent, but prep time has to be considered in the cost of our mixing. So keep that in mind. Another consideration would be studio time. If you don't have your own home studio or a studio that you own, like this is my, home studio converted room. I've treated the heck out of it. I built it for this, but it's essentially a room that I have access to all the time. If I was mixing at a studio I had to rent, that would be a huge added expense that I would have to consider. Wouldn't be ideal for me at all, because I like to be able to take my time, but some people don't have that luxury. And then sometimes there's actually things that add expenses to the whole mixing process for me. So while I'm charging somebody to mix a song, I'm also paying somebody to help me get it ready for mixing. So I have a couple different people I use as prep assistants. They create my key spikes off the drums that get sent to me. Sometimes they clean the drums for me. So if I want to get rid of all the audio between tom hits, they might just prep that for me. If I get sent MIDI drums, I usually have them convert it to audio files for me so that I can mix it as a live acoustic drum kit, because that's just my workflow. There's all these different types of things. Vocal tuning, I often do that myself, but sometimes I outsource that to somebody else that's better at that genre. And then that is something I'm paying for, so I have to build that into the price of my mixing. And then last, and probably the most common, would be mastering. Are you including a master with your mix? So are you providing it mastered, or are you charging them to do a master, or are you just giving them a pre-master and they have to go pay to get it mastered somewhere else? This is just another consideration that all should be considered before you price your mixes. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a ton of things, but that kind of gives you an idea that it's just a lot more goes into it than just mixing the song. I mean, there's also, all the equipment you own. You got to value all of that as well. Value your experience. It's a lot that goes into just mixing a song. And remember, I've got a bonus tip at the end that's going to actually help you slim down on some of that prep stuff, just to make your, wage per hour better, less time spent on the project, more time mixing, all a win for you. That's coming up. Stay tuned. And now jumping into the actual price tiers of how much you should be charging for a mix, let's start at the lowest tier. And this is kind of what I would consider to be the beginner tier, and that is $0 to about $400. Of course, these are approximate, but that is what I would consider on the really low side for a mix. This does vary from genre to genre, of course, and I'm mostly talking from my experience in the world of rock, but I would say that $0 to $400 on average is on the low side, and that is going to be your kind of beginner mixers or people that are trying to build up a portfolio or just get a chance. Maybe they're the great, That doesn't mean that these are going to be bad mixes. It just means that it's less likely to be good. So let me explain that. Pretty much as we go through these tiers, we're going to have our beginner tier, our professional tier, it's kind of the mid tier I'm actually going to call that, but that's where professionals usually live, and then our celebrity tier, the highest tier. And as we go up that, the likelihood of it being a good mix goes up, but so does the cost. Now, it is a percentage though. It is not a guarantee that it will be good as the cost gets higher. It is a likelihood. So keep that in mind for all of these, including the lowest tier, where we are spending $0 to $400. Say somebody reaches out to you and says, hey, I just know I could nail your song. You're the perfect fit for me, and I'll do it for free to prove it. They might be perfect. But there's probably a lack of experience, because if they're doing it for free, they probably don't have a portfolio to demand a price with. And that lack of experience kind of means that you don't have a lot of real world experience at solving the problems that could pop up. Sometimes you think you're going to nail a mix, but then you get it and it's like, this is just so different than what I'm used to. I don't know how to mix it. Kind of experience that brings your average up. So from 0 to 400, the average is really low. It's probably not going to be professional, is my hunch, but it might be. I'm trying to give everybody a chance, but I would encourage you to hit tier 2, and tier 2 is where professionals live. All right, so the mid tier here, the professional tier, is about $500 to $1,000 US, I would say. I'm actually in Canada and I charge $650 a song Canadian, so I'm actually on the low side of this, but I was charging $600 last year, moving up to $650 for this year. And I did a lot of research for this and talked to my peers who have been working professionally as mixing engineers or producers who also mix. And this $650, $700 range was the average by a long shot. And these are people that do it for a living. So this is what I consider the professional tier. And I think we need to explore why that is. If you are used to the first tier, the $400 and under, chances are that this professional tier sounds outrageously expensive to you. And maybe you're charging that lower tier yourself and you're like, I could never charge that much. Well, I want to explain why you absolutely need to charge this professional tier. Because as mentioned in the very kind of first section of this video, there's so much more that goes into mixing a song, and it just takes a lot of time. I would say that on average, it takes most mixing engineers a day to mix a song, and maybe a little bit more if they're a little more honest about the revision process as well as the prep process. And if we're a little bit more honest and we actually consider how much we're spending on our own services with buying software, buying plugins, buying monitors or sound treatment, all of that stuff, just the electricity to keep this place on. Maybe you use a service like FilePass to share your mixes with your clients. The overhead is higher than you're giving yourself credit for, so you need to build in a little more profit if you actually want to be able to afford to do this full time. I don't know anybody that charges the tier 1 prices that does this for a living. That really sums it up. Everybody I know that does it for a living is charging at least this professional tier prices. So 500 and up, that's where you gotta live if you want to actually be making a living with this, because chances are you are not working 5 days a week mixing songs. If you are mixing one song a day at $600, let's say, 5 days a week, then you're making a good living. But chances are you're not getting 5 days a week of one song a day. That's just not how it goes in this industry. It's a lot more feast or famine than that. Now you're probably thinking, okay, well, what if we split that in half? Well, then it's still not that much money. If you want to have a family and have a profitable business that is sustainable and predictable, you have to up those rates to just make it work. And this is what, like I said, by far the average was like $650, $700. So you're on par if you're charging that much. If you're charging less and you consider yourself a professional, I honestly think you really need to give your head a shake and get up here. You'll thank me later. Now, why are some people charging this much and not the lower tier? Well, that does come down to a certain amount of experience and portfolio, I would say. It's, hey, I've done professional work. You can check it out here. It's work I'm proud of and that other people also think sounds good. And hopefully some credits as well. And by credits, I mean success stories, like this song got a crap load of streams, this song got on the radio. That was kind of my ticket. I just kept getting bands on the radio stations over here in Western Canada, and it was like, I can do this and my work proves that it's that quality. It's radio quality. Is that what you're looking for? I can do that. And again, we need to go back to that average success rate. If you're paying a professional who has done professional work on a consistent basis, chances are pretty good you're going to get a professional mix back when you send it to them. It is still so important to choose the right mixer for your song. And yes, I realize that I'm now talking from the point of view of a musician rather than the mixer who's selling the services. I'm talking from the point of view of a musician hiring a mixer. I still don't feel great. Deal with it. You can figure it out. I'll probably flip-flop again. That average quality level is going to be way up. Make sure you're working with the right type of person. And honestly, if you are the mixer and you want to keep that average of high quality work up and you take a mix from a totally different genre, there's a risk in that. Yes, you're going to be a lot more likely to be able to get it up to that good level, but you don't have experience in that genre, so it's not as likely as your wheelhouse genre. So keep that in mind, I guess. One small note I do want to mention is that, of course, these are averages based on my biased community, and I did research internationally on this, but still within, my community of rock professionals. So of course, there's a bunch of countries that can't charge anywhere near this. I understand that. Don't feel bad if you're in that boat. There's no shade. I do encourage you to charge as much as you can. It seems to improve your clients, and it also just makes the work a lot easier to get behind when you aren't starving. So do your best with that. But yeah, I just want to mention that, I know that this isn't possible for everyone. All right, now we're on to our celebrity tier, the highest tier. This is the $1,000 and above tier. This is, well, I call it celebrity tier because the people that are doing this are celebrity status in our world. They're the people that have mixed your favorite band. Billboard hit, have not a Grammy or something. They have a lot to back it up. Their accolades are very big, and there's the likelihood of connections. I think that's actually a huge selling feature for the people charging over $1,000. And I do want to mention that the celebrity status, $1,000 is actually pretty low. A lot of my celebrity mixers, the people that I would want to hire, are $2,500 US for a song. That's kind of the world they're living in usually. But I would say around $1,000 and up is kind of where this label work world starts happening. Not exclusively. You'll find people in the professional tier as well, but up here, this is, you're reading about them in magazines, So what are you getting in the celebrity tier? You're getting the same things as the professional tier. You're getting that reliable likelihood of success, maybe even more, because reaching that level probably means that they're really good at it, There's not necessarily, but probably. It also probably means that they've worked on some really crazy, difficult projects that have been, no excuses. We need this to be label success ready, and they're used to that high standard. So chances are you're going to get bang and mix back. Of course, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. What you give them is so important. What you give them makes more of a difference than who you hire to mix your song. Crap in, scrap out. But these people are really good. Yeah, and I think to a certain extent at this price, a lot of people are kind of well, if I work with guy who mixed band X, then maybe I'll get introduced or have a way to connect to band X or to manager Y, there's this networking thing that happens at this level too of well, they work with a lot of the people I want to be working with. So if I work with them, maybe I can work with those people too. And I actually don't think that's wrong. I don't think it's likely. It's probably less likely than you think, but it's not impossible. And if that's worth that shot to you, then consider the celebrity thing. Also, there's a certain amount of credibility that can come along with it, especially during a PR campaign for a single. Go to a radio station, talk about your single, talk about how it got mixed by, the same dude that mixed Adele or something. That sounds cool, right? It just does. There's no arguing with that. So there is a certain amount that comes along with it, which is cool. There's one warning I would have though, and that is that maybe the celebrity tier is more used to working with really good tracks. So if you're not able to provide like really high quality studio tracks, maybe this isn't the right move for you, because they're not going to be used to getting DIY, bedroom tracks, essentially. They're not going to be used to polishing those up and knowing how to work with them. They're going to be used to getting really professionally engineered and produced tracks that are kind of already there. It's like, this should sound banging by the time it reaches them. And some people just don't have that luxury, or haven't developed that skill yet, but still need a really high quality mix. So I would actually say that if that sounds like you want to be living down in the professional tier, where they're used to a variety of tracks, of maybe not optimal tracks, and then figuring out fixes for them, figuring out how to squeeze the most out of them. It's kind of a unique skill set. So it's kind of a tangent, but worth considering, I think. One more thing worth considering with this celebrity tier is that there might be points involved in the price as well, like a contract where they're taking royalties on top of their price tag. It's not super common, but it does exist. So if that happens, I encourage you to speak to a lawyer and just make sure it's worth it. And then, additional things to be considered while you're considering the price of what you're going to pay or what you're going to charge is, are you including mastering? Are you including alternate versions? Unlimited revisions, a certain revision limit? All of this needs to be thought of as well. Pros and cons for every scenario under the sun, and I think probably certain standards that are expected in certain genres as well. So do your research, but ultimately it's your business. You can do it how you want to. Now, I did want to share one little bonus tip to wrap this video up, and that is just how to both be a good client, but be an even better service provider if you're a mixer. And it's also going to help deal with all of the problems that take up all this time and extra money that I mentioned in the start of this video, like the prep time and organization and file management. And that is by building yourself a little resource that you provide to your clients that helps them provide you the files in the way that you need. I can't recommend this enough, honestly. I've done it a couple different ways. I've made like a PDF. I've got a little email template that I send out. And then I've also made a video so people can watch. Really, people can learn however they want, as long as they do it this way. So that goes over everything. It goes like details that I'm expecting, consolidated WAV files from the start of the session so that they all line up. It goes over how to label them so that they kind of group themselves by instrument group alphabetically. It goes over making sure they're not normalized and, or effects aren't left on that aren't meant to be. It just helps ensure that they get it over to me right the first time, which stops like a lot of back and forth emails. It saves their time so they don't have to do this twice. Honestly, people hate exporting files. It's scary. It's something they don't have to do very often. So you don't want them to have to do it multiple times. And by the time that you even get the files to start mixing, they're already fed up with the process. That's not going to help you or them. So this makes it less stressful and then ensures that you get what you need, and then you get to mixing quicker because it's now much easier to import this into your own session. You're not looking for trying to fix lost files or files exported in the wrong way or unlabeled files, figuring out what they are. It just speeds the whole thing up. It makes you look professional. It makes the client have an easier time, and it saves you time, which means makes you more money. It's a win for everybody. Can't recommend it enough. So please do that. If you want to see the one that I am currently providing to clients, you can just shoot me an email. That's listed in my description. I'd be happy to send it over to you. I'll share you with one quick funny story from my personal experience about really badly prepared mix files. And this was actually me. It's actually a success story in a way, but I mixed a band in high school. They were actually quite good. And I was out of my bedroom and I was trying to mix it, and I just realized that the band sounded awesome, but I didn't know what I was doing. So I convinced them to hire a mixer. One of the best decisions I've ever made. They got on the radio after this for just like a local radio spot kind of thing, but it was very cool when you're 16. And I sent the files to the mixer, a guy named Zach Cohen at the Woodshop Recording Studio, great engineer. And I didn't send very good files. I sent just like a PDX. I just copied my whole Pro Tools session folder, sent them that, was like, deal with it. Had no idea about exporting anything. And I had butchered things. A bunch wasn't labeled. he said it took him like a day to figure out what the heck was going on and to fix all the stuff I had screwed up. Suffice it to say, he gave me a phone call and got me up to speed on what's expected as a professional audio engineer. It's like, because this wasn't it. So it was very embarrassing, but ultimately that actually led to me getting an internship at that studio, a couple of years later, probably not that long, but it led to the rest of my life in a way. Very, very formative exchange. But, well, I do hope something cool like that happens to you. I think it would have happened easier and quicker if I'd actually sent him good files. He would have been like, hey, this kid nailed it. Let's get him out. Okay. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to comment down below any questions or your own experience. Would love that. And other people would find it helpful too. And there's going to be another video coming up for you right here and here. Adios.